On the bench today is a pair of JL Audio's C1-690X. These appear to be their entry level, I think. Even though they were like 180 bucks.
Yeah.
We saw them as much as $180 a pair. So I would love to know this crossover. It looks like it's a 12 dB high pass for the tweeter, but it might be a 6 dB high pass on just the tweeter, and then a 6 dB low pass on the mid-range. And then the cones are poly with a honeycomb texture. It's not real honeycomb, it's just a honeycomb texture. It's in the molding, and then a rubber surround. So does it say how many watts? Does not say how many watts these speakers play. I don't know. I got them used for a really good price. I can do them 80 local or 100 shipped for the pair. I think these are the Chrysler connectors, if I remember right, or maybe Ford, I don't remember. But you can cut these off and do whatever. I'll include some crimp caps with them. So we played them, and you know, it's just a 6x9. I personally like the recoil one. It's got a bigger magnet. So, but it's about the same size. The recoil one just has a boot on it. Yeah, it's a little bit. There's a thing on it. So, but this is, you know, people are more SQ stuff. There's been a lot of conversation lately about what's the difference between SQ and regular, and then SQ versus SPL. And there's no difference. So each piece of equipment is made for a specific job, and if you use it within that job, what it's made for, it performs very, very well. So things that are typically SQ, and I put that in quotes, is typically it's just expensive and pretty looking. That's it. That's the only thing that makes it SQ. Now, as far as subwoofers and amplifiers go, the only thing that I've seen that would differentiate between, and let's just assume everybody wants good sound quality. The only difference between sound quality and then SPL, or like a competition type of setup, would be that an SPL setup, the woofer has a stiffer suspension. That's it. And the stiffer suspension raises the FS. And so it's more efficient at higher frequencies, which to me is, it doesn't make sense, because the whole point of a subwoofer is to play low, is to play the first 1-2 octaves. That's it. So, but you can make the suspension stiffer and it will handle more power. It just won't play as low. So I hope that makes sense. So there was an SPL vehicle that I built 12 big magnet subs for, and I said, hey, let me try something a little different. And so again, it wasn't necessarily that I was experimenting. It was that I told them, I said, hey, these aren't going to be what you're expecting, right? Because what they're expecting is a really, really stiff spider. And so what I used was just a regular Lord of Bass. I think it was a Lord of Bass. Maybe it was mine. Just a single soft spider with leads, dual leads. And I made them all. I think at the time I was using the quad coil, the Concept quad coil. And so I wired them all in series. So that gave a 8-layer coil all in series, which helped on the SPL. Again, only fractions of a decibel. But what it allowed also is for me to double up the leads on each side and then make it a single 4-ohm, really high power, probably 2 kilowatt subwoofer. And the suspension was really soft, and the rest of the parts were just, regular. And he said he really, really liked it because the amplifier didn't have to work so hard. It didn't require so much power to get the speaker cone to move, right? Which is what you want, because that's what makes the sound, is when the speaker cone moves. Now, what gets weird is when a lot of guys use a box that's too big, and I've talked about this, like Sundown promotes a box that's too big. Baseaholic recommends, he just goes off of what Sundown recommends, and again, it's too big of a box, and so does MB Enclosures. They do a box that's too big. Can you put the woofer in a box that's too big? Yes. Is it going to handle as much power? No. And so you got to understand that there's a balance that you want to achieve, and again, it goes back to what is best for your application. How are you using this subwoofer? And are you even using the correct subwoofer for your application? And that may sound silly, but that's absolutely true. And so it's important to know what to look for. If it's just a daily drive, a daily something that you want it to sound really good, or an SQ build, you want it to play down to about 30 hertz. You don't really want to go lower than that. You can, but you don't need to. But you want something that can play down to no more than 30 hertz. Again, if you're going below that, it gets into a different application that it's good for, like home theater. That gets different altogether, where you can get away with a bigger box, and it still keeps control because you're not sending too much power to it. The problem you run into is when you're running a really big box and you're running way too much power to it. That's when you burn up subs and you have some other issues. And that's where you actually would want a stiffer suspension to survive the way that you're misusing it. So again, I know this isn't what companies talk about, but if you were able to talk to engineers like I have around, while drinking beer or something like that, or just while they're not at work and representing the company, this is the things that they'll tell you. And I understand that these concepts are not popular. It doesn't make them any less true. So my final review on these is that these are okay. They're just really overpriced. So stamped steel frame. These I think we have for $35 a pair. These I'm going to sell really cheap at $80 a pair local, and then $100 a pair shipped if you want them, or if you can even resell them. Like I said, they sell for $180 a pair, which it just some people like to buy a $10 pot. Some people like to spend $20 on a pot. So it just depends on what you want to spend. So I hope that helps. I love you guys. Take care of each other.